All right, let's get it. Today, I want to discuss, as you see on the screen, Google Gemini's shocking admission. And this isn't one of those gotcha type videos where you sort of trick AI into saying something. Actually, Gemini doesn't work like that. I don't know about Chat GPT because I'm not a user of Chat GPT, but with Gemini, and not just Gemini, in general, right? If you are trying to extract information, you have to ask the right question or questions, right? Think of a trial lawyer. You have to probe, you have to ask the right questions in order to gather or obtain critical or pertinent information. So keep that in mind as I go through these slides, and this is going to be a series of screenshots of some questions that I was asking Google Gemini, and the answers may shock some of you. So, with all of that being said, let's jump into it. So, as you can see on the screen, and this wasn't the first question that I asked, but this was the most pertinent question. The question, and like I said, this is a screenshot. So the question is, if you could recast movies like The Ten Commandments, or The Mummy, or Gods of Egypt, would you cast majority black actors? Gemini's response: if we were aiming for historical and geographical accuracy over Hollywood tradition, the casting of these movies would look radically different. Based on the actual demographics of the ancient Nile Valley and the Swana, Southwest Asia and North Africa region, a recast would shift toward a majority black and brown cast. And then it goes into how the recasting would work. But that's an interesting admission, right? I mean, because they've been telling us for years that ancient Egyptians were not black. But according to AI, and you can't just ask that question directly. It would probably give you the runaround and tell you about Egypt being multicultural and all of that other nonsense that you hear people say and talk about sub-Saharan Africa, all of that type of stuff. But again, you have to ask the right questions. So that's why this admission is really important and significant. But let's see what it says about the Ten Commandments in general, or specifically, I guess I should say. These films are set in Egypt. Ancient Egypt was a Nilotic civilization. The people of ancient Egypt were a continuum of African people. That's another shocking admission. Those in the south, Upper Egypt, were dark-skinned, similar to modern-day Nubians or Sudanese people. Another shocking admission. Those in the north, Lower Egypt, were more mixed with Levantine and Mediterranean populations. One can argue that, but I'll accept it. The recast. Instead of Charlton Heston or Brandon Fraser, or the actor who played the mummy is some European, I can't pronounce his name, Nikolai something. The leads would ideally be actors of Egyptian, Sudanese, or Ethiopian descent. By casting white actors, Hollywood suggests that civilization, architecture, law, writing, etc., is a white invention even when it's happening in the heart of Africa.
New Year, same extra value meals at Mc.
Let's take a look at what Gemini had to say about the movie Gods of Egypt. This movie was famously criticized for its whitewashing. It featured Gerard Butler and Nikolai Coster-Waldau as Egyptian deities. I think most of us know who Gerard Butler is. This Nikolai character is the guy from Game of Thrones. He was the Lannister brother that was in basically having a sexual relationship with his sister Cersei. I was going to say something else, but I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, the Egyptian gods Horus, Sete, Osiris were the spiritual reflections of the people who worshiped them. To be accurate to the culture that created them, these gods should be portrayed by black actors. In ancient Egyptian art, Osiris is often depicted with jet black or green skin, symbolizing the fertile soil of the Nile and rebirth. And then it goes into olive skin, which is a prior conversation that I was having. Basically saying how olive skin is also like just a racist way of saying black, but acknowledging that someone isn't white, but they don't want to go all the way and say that they were black. So I'll read this also. Casting quote unquote olive skin actors here is often used as a compromise, but it still fails to acknowledge the deep rooted sub-Saharan African elements of Egyptian theology and royalty. I've done videos discussing how sub-Saharan Africa, or just the term sub-Saharan, is also another racist dog whistle. There is no such thing as sub-Saharan as it relates to race or skin tone, right? There is no magical, mythological barrier or border that prohibits black people from existing north of the Sahara Desert. That's another story, though. And this is how this conversation all began, right? I was asking AI just to sort of get a look into how my mind works. I originally asked AI, I asked Gemini about that scene in Django Unchained where Calvin Candy cuts the skull and talks about the three dimples, which somehow suggested that black people were inferior. So that's sort of how this whole thing started. So just to read its follow-up on the Calvin Candy discussion. This brings us full circle to Calvin Candy. If Calvin walked into a movie theater and saw a historically accurate version of the Ten Commandments with the majority black cast, his entire worldview would collapse. His skull science relied on the idea that black people were incapable of building empires. By casting these movies with white actors, Hollywood, perhaps subconsciously, kept Candy's pseudoscience alive for decades by visually erasing black people from the history of their own continent. I told you, if you probe enough, if you ask the right questions, you'll get some very interesting answers. So to make a long story short, these guys are incredibly miscast, right? Chances are Imhotep, which is the mummy that was resurrected, would have been black. And I mean, there are guys who do YouTube videos that actually break down and debunk those theories that Imhotep was not black, right? I mean, if the Ten Commandments was recast today, Moses would be black, right? Yul Brynner would not be Pharaoh Ramses or Pharaoh, whichever one he's supposed to be, right? They'd all be black. Now let's connect some dots. If Gemini is telling us that Moses should have been black, let's read between the lines. He's saying ancient Israelites were black. Uh-oh. If it's saying the Pharaoh should have been black, when we move down the line, we're getting to their favorite olive-skinned person, right? Did Gemini basically just tell us that Jesus was black? Boom. But I'll let you come to that conclusion on your own. So, like always, I appreciate you guys taking some time out of your busy schedules to listen to me rant. Again, if you like my vibe, check out my podcast, me and my buddy KG, For the Fan Podcast. We got videos up on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and everywhere else that you get your favorite podcast. Check us out. Give us a listen. We're unfiltered. We go hard. With that being said, I want you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. Holler at me in the comments if you disagree or agree. I'll get back at you when I have time. So again, thanks for listening, and I appreciate your time. Peace.